Welcome to episode 4 of Beside Ourselves, a podcast on business AI adoption. We are Beside Partners, a team of technologists that guide SMEs through AI and its implications. My name is Theo. I'm a CEO at a technology consultancy based in Cologne in Germany. Joining me as always, I have got Giles, who's a fractional CIO based in Cambridge in the UK, and Rutger, the fractional CMO based in Utrecht in the Netherlands. Welcome to the podcast, guys. Good to have you.
Thanks. Great to be back. Good to see you again.
Fantastic. So as always, the conversation will center on a single topic. This week it was chosen by Rutger. And over the next 20 minutes, which I will start clocking in a second, we will approach AI from the management perspective. This time, we're going to specifically ask, how can business leaders translate AI strategy into value? So the clock starts now, and I will hand this over to Rutger to introduce today's topic.
Thanks, Theo, for the introduction. And today's topic, what you mentioned, Theo, is really about leadership, vision, and strategy, and how to translate it into execution. The reason I picked this topic is because I experienced from my conversations with SMEs in the market that many strategies actually fail. They have a vision, they have a plan, they have an idea, but they struggle to translate that into concrete action and outcome, so to say. I've also witnessed that it's not because of technology or the lack of willingness from the teams, but because leadership lacks clear guidance towards the teams and the realistic roadmap with very pragmatic and actionable items. So AI strategies are often too fuzzy. That's what I definitely recognize. It's about we want to be AI first. You hear that a lot. You also hear a lot about AI native, who want to be part of the AI wave. So that type of terminology is not resonating well with clear execution. Another thing I've seen is that it's too high level or actually too specific. But there is a gap in between, so to say. So what you notice is we want to replace workforces, or we want to have an X percentage of tasks in our team done by AI. Those type of objectives being set. And they're often too much driven by the FOMO. I think AI is everywhere, even people making jokes about it. It's a big topic, and you see oh my God, I need to step up. I don't want to miss the boat. Rather than that, they say okay, I have a clear. I stay consistent. I pick one specific AI project and then turn that into reality. Or what is my mid to longer term success? So this is actually the reason why I brought up the topic. And it's kind of interesting, because this is something that almost in every conversation I have with SMEs is showing up as a topic. Yeah. And the outcome of this also to address is that teams feel very unclear. If it's we want to be AI first, where to start? And teams are confused about that. They feel overwhelmed. They feel the pressure of delivering, but they get frustrated because they don't have the tools in place, or the empowerment to really act. So outcomes of those type of situations are usually no ownership. There is no action, and AI implementation stays to topics of we want to be AI first, we want to be AI native. So I want to bring this topic up. It's an interesting topic.
It's a fascinating topic, absolutely.
Yeah. So I was basically to start the discussion. What are your thoughts on this? Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
I'll let Giles go first on this one.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Well, again, I think we've chosen yet another topic that we could talk on for hours. And I think it's a really good one. I think because it kind of gets to the nub of, why. And I think why all three of us really are here today and want to help businesses with this. I think for me, and I completely agree with everything you said, Rutger, the amount of business you see where people turn around, it's all oh, we must have AI, we must do AI. And it's technology led. And I think to actually really generate value in the business, you need to start with the business problems rather than the technology. Let the problems lead it rather than actually the technology. So rather than saying, oh, we must have, I don't know, ChatGPT's latest offering, it's actually what are the problems we need to solve? And then those problems in turn need to be owned by the business, and most importantly, you need to be able to measure them and have effective, measurable outcomes that you can actually see whether you actually, are you generating the value? Because again, so many projects, and this is regardless of AI, any sort of project, technology projects particularly, you go into without actually, I guess, agreeing what success looks like. Be they internal projects, be they projects you're being paid for by a client, stuff like that, actually agreeing collectively what success looks like. And the way you do that needs to, you need to be able to measure that, and it needs to be using, and I'll say you need to use business language to do that. So you're not like saying, oh, I don't know, how many tools have we got? How many, I don't know, pilots or a number of prompts have we generated? Use business language, things like how many hours have we saved? What costs have we reduced? Have our customer satisfaction scores gone up? Real tangible things that you should already be measuring as a business. Use those to measure the success and the value, hopefully, that you're generating out of that. I mean, there's a whole other sort of areas we can talk about, but that's just some of my initial thoughts there. Theo, I don't know what your thoughts are.
Well, to build up a little bit of what you were saying, to kind of give it a different frame, I think that many leaders are applying tactical thinking on what is essentially a strategic opportunity. Mara's law, if something is a quote that says, we tend to overestimate the effect of a technology in the short run and then underestimate it in the long run. And I think many business leaders fall foul of that. So in the short term, exactly what you said, the brief seems to be, let's do something with AI. It's driven by hype, by FOMO, use the technology beyond the value. And we can't really blame business leaders. Their instinct is right. Using a new technology is a signal of dynamism, of staying relevant. It's a little bit like, having a website in the late 90s. It was not linked to business objectives, but you had to have one.
Yeah.
Right? It was a signal.
Yeah.
Now, moving that aside, that's the tactical thinking. That's the overestimating the short term, and moving the focus over to the long term. The first iteration of AI, Gen AI, was very much a tool for a specific role. You could write a document, you can let you chat with your content, but it is for a single person for your role. AI agents, on the other hand, that are coming up, they sit between roles. That's the magic over there. They make every interaction between different business actors a little bit smoother. It's the equivalent of having digital payments that revolutionized retail and also laid the groundwork for e-commerce, making the transactions smoother. And in the same way, AI agents will rewire your workflows. And you cannot underestimate here the impact that it will have in the long run. In rewiring workflows, it will rewire value chains, supply chains, entire economies, right? And this is what I'm saying, that AI is a thing that at the end, it requires strategic level attention. It's not something that is just, let's do something today to use the technology. You need to give it your attention as a leader. You need to think, how will it rewire my business? What opportunities does it open? I don't just want to do things faster. I want to do things better. I'm going to be dealing with risks that are not just of the here and now. They are much more profound than that. There is steam resistance, there's environmental risk, there is technology risk, there is cost, all these things. The whole point is to take a step back, give it your attention, and then at some point we will talk about delegate to the right people. Needs to have leadership attention and then delegation to the right team. And Rutger, I know that you feel strongly about
that. I feel very strongly about that. And to elaborate a little bit on that, it's also, I got triggered by what you just mentioned, Theo. Also, like in terms of like business objectives and AI, usually see that the focus is a lot on efficiency in cost reduction. And most of the plans are thinking in that direction. On the other hand, I think there is a huge opportunity to focus on enablement to human power. And
Definitely.
to increase revenue, actually, and to expand faster or to amplify things. And that type of like acceleration is sometimes overlooked. That's also something I want to add to your story, Theo. So from that point, I'm in full agreement.
Yeah, and I think the phrase I always use is augmentation over replacement. I think within, and I can't remember if it might have been last week, I'm sure we've touched on this in previous podcasts, but there is an inherent fear and suspicion, verbalized or not, that exists in the workforce. Like, oh, they're going to, those above are going to use AI to replace me. And actually that friction or that suspicion can then add friction to the adoption of that. But if you come into it, that mindset that what we're trying to do is provide tools that empower our workforce, augment with our workforce and actually make them better, take the kind of, the manual tasks and those sort of things off them, I think that in itself is going to help drive value because it kind of removes one of those friction points. I think one of the other things I wanted to just touch on, a couple of things we've said, I think, which is actually another kind of thing that's there as well, is that, once you've got your business problems and you're trying to think about how you do it, how do you then prioritize? Because, we've all been in those things, sessions, workshop sessions, where you have a whiteboard that stretches the entire length of the room and there's all these ideas that are on there. How do you then actually decide, well, which ones should we pick out first? Now, obviously, being able to quantify and measure them is one. I think there's also some really good, any number of frameworks you can apply out there. And one I've used before, which I really like, is that idea of applying just a simple concept of what, about comparing value against feasibility, and using that to help prioritize you. So, I know an example could be, automating invoice processing and reconciliation. Now that could be high value, but actually from a document processing perspective, that sort of functionality could be quite wood-ish to do. Compare that to something like, well, we want to build a, proprietary LMM for a specific niche need and market. Again, that's high value, but that's from a feasibility perspective, that's going to take quite a bit of time. So just using those straight two comparators can give you some ideas of how to then prioritize those and actually think, because that's the other thing. If you can get those things out the door quickly and into your teams and using it, that's going to obviously increase the value. It's going to increase the adoption, and it will kind of sort of pick things up much quicker.
No, I totally agree that. Now, to build on that a little bit, and to be my own favorite way of looking at prioritization, I come from the world of customer experience. So I would tether everything to a tangible customer outcome at the end. So an example here is that we're working in financial services and the customer might be complaining implicitly or explicitly that they do not understand exactly where they sit, for example, in an investment portfolio. And then it becomes a clear use case for AI, a high priority one, to empower your advisors to produce content to kind of facilitate that relationship with their clients a little bit better. Customers are happier, retention is higher, there's a there's a clear line from the AI project to the bottom line, right? And I think that if you tether anything that you do over to customer value, it would be both easy to communicate to your team because they will see the important, but also easier to find the budget for. When you talk to your CFO, it would be an easy argument to make that I want to invest in this area of AI to achieve this result here that is actually linked to customer value.
That's a great point, Theo, and I fully agree on that. I think it also taps into something about how to say that. Like, I think the knowledge diversity, let's put it like that, on AI. So I think there is a lot of unknown in the AI space, and I think the problem with delegating decision making and empowerment also sits with the fact that people don't have the full overview. Some of them are very savvy into AI and understand the processes of not only using generic AI, but also workflows, AI agents, and all of that. Others don't have that overview. They're confused. And you see that in leadership, but also within the teams. And there is a mismatch on all of those aspects. So I think decision-making and delegating decision-making really stands with the fact that you understand what the impact of AI can be, but also like further than that you know the details, understand how it should be built to a certain extent, so you can delegate and put the people in place at the right positioning and with the right decision-making levels to accelerate faster, so to say. And I think it's important to share that knowledge within teams, individuals, between all levels in a company, leadership, but also like the people that do the work, because then you have like a knowledge database or shared platform where everybody can tap from to tap in the right people at the right moment, so to say, to help out and really execute, so to say.
Let me build a little bit on that and kind of have a round robin of questions because it's a really interesting point for me. You mentioned, I think, the phrase "the right people" a number of times in what you were just saying, Rutger. Um, if you, as a CEO, CTO, you start on a project, you're beginning to kind of get an idea of what adoption might look like. Let's say that you have got your outcomes planned, you set your priorities. Who do you assign this work to? Do you keep it all to yourself? Do you create a custom team for it? Do you assign it to an existing team? How do you go about deciding who is the best person to actually execute after you have set the direction? That's a pivotal role.
Yeah, this is an amazing question. I love it because I think this taps into also the point that I just mentioned. I think it is about like the level of knowledge you have. You need to have some certain understanding about what you're trying to achieve, and I think knowledge sharing is always the best way moving forward. Knowledge is very scattered around AI in a company. People have different, and it's even like opinionated. People have a strong opinion on what AI can or can't do at the moment. So I think an open platform and an open place where people feel, how to say that, like trusted to speak openly about, like, I have questions around this, or have organized knowledge sharing sessions around successful implementations or actions or tools could really be used as like a flying wheel for shifting to AI execution. So I love your question about the right person because there isn't a right person. I think there is no one in this on the planet, so to say, that understands everything about AI. So it's scattered, and it's very important to take the puzzle pieces and bring them together to at least half the puzzle. So you're way, how to say it, like more knowledgeable and therefore more powerful in execution than when you just have the puzzle pieces, so to say, like scattered in your org.
Just to follow up on
You
that, I
agree?
mean, what I would say is that if you, as we said at the outset of this, if you're going to focus on the business problems you're trying to solve, then actually the best people to own the solutions are those people who those problems are inherently impacting. So if it's a marketing problem, actually having somebody in marketing champion the solution to that problem is going to help drive adoption. Now, yes, there needs to be things like, consideration around, technology choices, information security and all that kind of stuff. And you can provide the guardrails around it. When it comes to implementation, you could, internal IT capability, external A capability, whatever it is. But I think if you're saying this is a business problem we want to solve, then I think the first place you should look for people to champion that needs to be the actual team themselves, because again, that's going to help drive the adoption of it. That's going to help, rather than something that's being forced on us by IT, which is a phrase you always hear in businesses and have for time.
That's it.
Time going on, but if you can get them to own it and drive it and shape it, I think then that's again going to really be useful for success.
Yeah, and I think there is also different layers in between business outcomes and task-oriented execution.
Yes.
And it really depends on the size of your business, the industry you're in. But yeah, we all know that many organizations have many different teams. They support cross-functional collaboration, all of that. And the connecting dot is business outcomes, but that doesn't necessarily say that there are no steps in between to at least address clear marketing outcomes or clear operations outcomes or product outcomes that you, how to say that, like tap from the business goals or business objectives and then translate that into more actionable, executable AI implementations. Because of course, there's a lot of like technology that people look into, AI tooling and all of that. Because bottom up, you would definitely say it would make my life easier if I have this tool that I can use. but it should be aligned with like the marketing goals. So if that is contributing to more leads or more inbound revenue, whatsoever, and that subsequently, is driving more revenue for the business. So there's steps in between that are often overlooked as well, and I think that taps into a lot of confusion. So you hear the employee say, "I want to implement Clay as a tool," and on the other hand, the leadership can talk about like more inbound revenue. Then you should ask the question: how do we connect those two dots, and how is AI in this case like Clay supporting that inbound revenue uplift? So I think there is a lot like if you clarify it and make it into smaller pieces, you will really see like the many opportunities to increase. Well, in my case, in my background marketing, so inbound revenue. There's a
But I
lot of
think so just picking up on a phrase you used there was about cross-functional.
Just to say that we're running across against the clock. So
Okay,
Giles,
a very quick point was just going to say the phrase, and again, this is probably another whole podcast in itself, is that it's very easy to get down into those silos of focusing on what marketing problems, and actually where the real power comes is when you start looking at these things across teams and across functions and using AI and technology to pull that stuff together. But that is probably a topic for another day.
we're beginning to collect a serious library of topics we need to discuss. I've got 5 or 6 of them, and
Yeah.
might have to have a podcast a day to do them.
Exactly,
Anyway,
yeah.
we our 20 minutes are up, but before we close out today's episode, I think that all of us deserve a chance to share a final thought, a lesson, or a point that maybe we missed. Rutger, you introduce your topic. You go first.
Yeah, I'm like every discussion we have together, I love it because it brings new perspectives, and I get triggered by a lot of things we share in our conversations, which is really amazing. It even helps me in my daily work. But I think the key takeaway for me was what was really resonating was on those business goals. I think it's more like having a complete overview of what you're trying to achieve as a business, and not only focus on the efficiency part, but also on how to expand things and enable human resources, so to say, to accelerate. I think that's often overlooked. And then translating that complete list into road mapping and the prioritization that you mentioned, Giles, really triggered me as well. It's so nice to see that, because that will be really, I think, a great starting point to all the leadership that's listening to our podcast as a starting point. And I think everybody, this is very much like you can visualize this. So it's a tool, and it's always great that we guide companies in that direction and help them. But this is my key takeaway, so to say.
Cool.
Very good. Thank you. Giles?
Yeah, so I guess for me, it's just, just reiterating what we've already said, that, how do you generate value? Well, you need to understand what that value is. And so you need to define that, and you need to build that around what the problems you are trying to solve. And then you need to measure that effectively and almost ruthlessly. And then alongside that, it's about building capability and literacy within your teams so they embrace that and help drive that value through the business. And again, as we said, it's about, augmenting what your staff do, allowing your staff to be better at the jobs they're doing, rather than this whole sense of actually it's here to replace me or something like that. So I think they're the kind of two key takeaways for me would be, measure effectively and augment to your staff's existing capabilities.
Fantastic. My takeaways are, actually, I'm going to end up on a note of optimism and things going well. I think that this is how my take, the pulse on the market, is that a lot of the things that we're talking about here are beginning to happen. They're beginning to take shape. I detect a sense of ownership, bravery even from leadership, especially or even in SMEs. And a lot of what we're talking about, finding the value, taking brave steps into using AI, are beginning to happen. I'm beginning to kind of get a feel from them for the market. And of course, we as Beside Partners, we're going to be here to help people out. But it is, sounds like it is good steps forward are being taken.
Definitely.
And so that's it for today. Many thanks, gentlemen, for joining me today, and to the audience for listening. We'll be back with another episode touching one of the many issues that we have promised to touch in a week's time. In the meantime, we would love to hear from you. Please send us your questions and your feedback using the links in the description. We were, as always, beside ourselves to have you with us. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.